Hello, everyone. So after a 1 month break, Cerita is finally back. I am your host, Natalia, and I'm a 14-year-old writer and the author of the ebook The Cat on the Bridge, which you can check out in the description below. So, if this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much. I actually started Cerita for people who love words just like I do, but I mean, other than that, I also invite different people who respect the written art, but also just words in general. And I don't just mean writers like myself or even published authors. I mean, because I love talking to the lesser known people and really hearing their stories, their takeaways, and the lessons that they've learned along their journey. Because, I mean, after all, every person has a unique story to tell. And so far, we've had five really amazing people come on board to share their story. And I can tell you that today will be no different. The level of amazingness will still be really high because I personally am actually really excited for this session because for the first time in Cerita history, it is going to be split into two parts. That's how incredible this person is because I think that she just has such a unique story that it just can't be watered down. And I don't want it to be watered down because I really I just want to say that I'm really excited to hear what she has to say for these two sessions. So without further ado, everyone, please let's welcome Gina Yap to the virtual stage. Hi Gina,
Yay! Hello! Haven't been on
how
a
are you
virtual stage
doing?
for a long time. Yeah,
How have you
excited,
been? How have you been?
excited to
Excited.
be here. Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
So,
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this. I'm so excited to be talking to you. Uh, yeah. I think usually before I dive into like the deeper stuff, I like to go a little bit light and ask. I just like to ask like the speakers, what is your favorite book like of all time, maybe?
I think it's unfair to ask the author that question sometimes, because we just love stories in general, and then when you find a good story that is well written, that resonate with you at that certain point of your life, and then it goes into your favorite bookshelf, right? So yeah, I don't know if people have
Mm,
favorite bookshelf, but I have some that is like my idea of favorite is I would go back to it when I don't feel like reading anything else. So yeah, my
mm.
favorite bookshelf is quite big.
Like few genres, maybe like in general, like what's your favorite genre though?
Different season. So there was one time I just reading all the chick leads, and then by the time I reached the 20th, I'm like, oh, I can kind of predict what's happening next. So next, and then I kind of read some crime thrillers, and then if you're stuck to certain crime thrillers writers that you really like, but after five
Mm,
books you can figure out the thing. They go like, okay, next. So yeah, I think reading is a
yeah,
really good learning platform for any writers.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so true though, the seasons. Like, yeah, there was one point in my life where I was just into like the mystery genre, everything only mystery. And then suddenly it changed into romance for some reason. And then now it's fantasy. I have no idea why, but yeah, it's weird. Reading
Yeah,
reading has a lot of impact.
correct,
So
correct.
yeah. First of all, I just want to say that when I first saw your bio, I was I was like, what? Because that I know you've written more than 8 books, and I struggled to write even my 100-page book. And the fact that you've written 8 books is just like what incredible. So yeah, I just want to know like how did it all start? Like how did your writing journey start?
I I remember in primary school when I was reading. Actually, that was how I kind of score A in my essays. I used to fail my essays. Like language was not my thing. But I
Mm.
started to really enjoy reading, and the more I read, it kind of sort of automatically, magically rectify your language. You just kind of know
Yeah, that's true.
he is and
True.
she is, right? You don't ask me to explain
Yeah.
why, I don't know. The book's just been sounding that way. Yeah, so I started to score well in my language, my English and my Malay language. And then I remember the more I read, the more I go like, this book, I also can write a this story. Like certain books that there is a certain story that is so predictable, and so everything they go like, I can write this one, what? I can write this one. So after that I started to write lah. Don't just say you can write better than people just because you think you can write. Yeah, so I started writing a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stories. And I just wanted to I didn't think much about it. Like the idea of becoming a writer does not exist in this
Yeah.
bookworm, I just read and then I just write funny stories that I read myself and nobody else has read. So I happen to be writing some of my poetry and my stories in class because I'm not a very how to say a studious person lah. I go to class and I'm like, I can't concentrate. I'm a very hands-on person, so I don't do well in class.
Mm.
So I was always writing underneath the desk. I don't know how people school desk now lah. Previous school desk underneath got one drawer one.
Yeah.
Then I put my hand
Ah,
underneath. Then I'll be
ah.
writing. Then I'll be looking and then like yeah yes teacher. You know. And then I remember my teacher caught me writing poetry in class. So she took my
Oops.
poetry book and then I was a bit like bummed up like oh my gosh what's gonna happen now? Like not so much of the getting caught but the oh my gosh she's gonna read all this nonsense that I've been writing. And then at the end of the class, she actually came up to me, returned my book, and said, "Hey, I hope to see you publish one day." And I just went, "Publish? Is that even like possible?" It's like, what is this publish thing? So from there, that was the first hook lah. That this whole nugget or someone just throw something there and like, oh, how in school they ask you like, oh, what's the first three ambitions you have in life? It was always
Yeah.
like I just copy my friends one, lawyer, doctor. Like I have no thoughts of my own. But ever
Yeah,
since that
I see.
incident, I started to write writer, author, like it became something along those lines lah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
very
started writing
interesting.
from that moment lah, where the seed is placed lah. Put it that way lah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I know it's really interesting because like I think I'm not sure if it's like the same for every writer, but like from what I've heard, like a lot of like the creative people, they they don't think of seeing their creativeness as like an option for a career in the future until
Correct.
someone actually says like, hey, you know what, you can actually do this as your future. And then you're like, oh really? It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And but writer back then, right, it's not something that parents promote. Like
Yes,
because when I told
definitely.
my mom or my parents, my father, that I wanted to be a writer, then the first thing is like, oh, you mean you want to be like the writer, sit outside the Agong's house or Prime Minister house for half a day, 2 days, wait for a quote, cannot go toilet, cannot eat one ah. Good man, they will pay you man, you know. So they had this impression that why you choose this kind of like not
Yeah.
payable job or pay you solo and you suffer that kind of thing. Then after that I said, oh, I want to write books. Oh, that's even worse. Got people read me? Like
I
because my
see.
parents are not readers. So when I was
Yeah.
reader, they're already complaining every week she's buying a new book and now she wants to write a book. I don't know what she's thinking. So yeah, so I think for the longest time when I started writing my manuscript, I didn't really tell them because they could not understand it. Yeah. And
Wow.
I purposely write in Malay because uh I thought that it was easier to get published locally than internationally. Because in the writing
Hmm.
scene in Malaysia, actually, back then, especially 20, 30 years ago, um, English publishers are hard to come by. And local English
That's true.
publishers, right? They publish textbook, reading materials. Like you don't pick up a book that says this writer is from Malaysia. It's always 95%
Yeah.
abroad. But Malay
Yeah.
books is all Malaysian written.
Yeah, majority, yeah.
Yeah. So I said, okay, if I write in Malay, I got a higher chance of getting published. So I just went for it.
Hmm.
Lor.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's really funny. Like that's the perfect moment that you brought up the writing in Malay part because I think it's in Malaysia especially. I don't. It's very hard to come by like Chinese people writing in Malay specifically. So that's what really like captured my attention. Like wow, that's very unique. So I mean like how. I think you mentioned that you came to that decision because like it was easier to like publish in Malaysia, stuff like that. So I'm just like wondering, like, I mean, obviously, I don't think it was your first language. So
It
kind
was
of,
not my
was it your
first
first
language.
language? Was it?
I don't know. I'm pretty decent in that language lah. Because we are forced to read a Malay textbook. Right? Back
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
I
that's
was
true.
really taught English, right? Then we have to read some compulsory reading, and for the first time, I picked up my first Malay novel upon four.
Mm.
But Bukit Kepong or something. And I was like, wow, it was like 450 pages. How I'm going to finish this thing, you know? But surprisingly, that was the beginning of me reading a lot of Malay novels.
Mm.
Yes, not
Mm.
that hard lah. I mean, and thank God
Mm.
Bukit Kepong was a modern novel book and not some Malay Shakespeare's, you know? So it didn't have like what I would say lah, Malay Shakespeare's is like, oh, you have Sang Surya, di atas, di dalam
Ah,
langit. But they have modern language
I
like, oh, matahari sangat panas. Oh, I can understand this. You get
yeah,
what I
oh,
mean?
yeah. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense, makes sense. All right.
Yeah. So that was how I got like interested in reading a lot of Malay novels. So when I chose to write, right, again, my language was already rectified from reading a lot of Malay novels
Mm.
lah. So it wasn't that difficult a decision to make. And I
Uh-huh.
told myself, I don't have to be Sang Surya. I just be Matahari can already. Like
Yeah,
write things that I would read lah.
yeah, yeah, makes sense, makes sense. Yeah, I think yeah, it's very true that your read what you read actually will really influence, right, how you write, especially because it's well, it's like all consuming, right? And then it's the input and then the output. So yeah, very
Correct.
interesting. Yeah.
Every writer has
What's
to have
the
an input before they can output.
mm,
A lot. I
yes,
saw when I
very
meet writers who tell me stuff like, "Oh, I don't like reading." Then I went like, "How on earth are you gonna be a
true.
writer? Then no input." You get what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Uh, okay. Very curious because like even though like you say like you were it's very okay lah like you're quite decent in the language and it's like something that's not particularly hard to use. So like can you just tell me a little bit like what was the challenges that you faced while writing your books?
So like, okay, languages aside, I always joke lah. If they say, really really meh, right? Bahasa so easy meh, Malay meh? I would actually tell you this simple illustration. In
Mm.
English, you have past tense, present tense, perfect past tense, active tense, whatever tense lah, okay? Okay,
Yeah, all the
imagine
tenses.
writing all these tenses in 100,000 words.
Ah.
Oh, but in Malay, you only have makan, sudah makan, belum makan. What other tenses
Oh.
do you have? Nothing. Okay, so I was thinking like, to choose between the easy one, belum, sudah, and sedang, and this don't know how many bunch of past tense, perfect tense, which my English teacher keep telling me, and I could never get it. I can write
Mm.
it, but if she asked me to explain it, I don't know. I just said the book sounds correct, the line sounds correct. Don't ask me to explain
So
why.
true.
You get that? Right? So
So
that
true.
would say writing 100,000 word was easier in Bahasa because there were no tenses. There's no tenses in Bahasa lah.
Mm.
So it saves me a lot
Interesting.
of headache. In 100,000 word, it's a lot of headache. Yeah. So I
Mm.
started writing. It didn't start easy also. I remember when I was young. I don't know lah. You're young now lah. Huh? Maybe you can tell me if I'm too over ambitious. So I was like,
Oh,
okay. Before I turn 21, I will publish my first book. And then you go to college, and then you get a job, and then it just never happened because everyone else is just laughing about the idea anyway. Your
yeah.
parents like, why are you reading? And your friends like, why of all things you want to write a Malay book? So there wasn't any support. Yeah. So then I started working and all that. And one day I just said, never mind. I think after 5 years of working, I wanted to try freelancing. That time freelancing wasn't even a word, okay? If you say freelancing, your parents say, oh, you mean just sit at home and rot. That kind of stuff. So
Oh,
yeah. So I resigned my job and then I said before my next job, I'm just gonna sit down and write lah. So I wrote lah, I started writing. I give myself I think about 1 year it took me to write that book because before I resigned, I told my colleagues, my Malay colleagues, I writing you all layan lah, just baca one chapter uh a week. I will send you every Monday, okay? So that was how it got started. And then I wrote my first Malay manuscript lah, which is nothing bombastic about it. It's very cliche story of a fat woman falling in love with a fat guy. Like that's like nothing special lah. If not like some Star Wars or something, it was just a cliche love story kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. So I
Mm.
wrote it, then yeah, lor, that's it lah. And I remember it's a very lonely process lah. Because I finished writing, then I'm like, yay! Then your mother outside the room say, yay, what? Nothing, I finished 100,000 word. Yeah, 100,000 word. Like, no,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. So
no
how do you
one to
face that
celebrate you.
then?
So,
Like,
what I I didn't share with my parents or my friends my journey. I just sendiri on my own lah. Yeah, because I know that so far every time I talk about it, they just think that I'm talking about it, you know. And then if you write in Malay, you don't get friends who read for you for fun. You only have one or two colleagues who might be interested to read, or like not even interested to follow the next chapter or something like that, you know. So then
Mm.
I completed the manuscript. I remember, yeah, not much of a celebration. It's just me in my room going woohoo, and then okay, now next, like what's next, you know. It's a very lonely journey lah when I started.
Very true. So like I guess you will agree now that would you agree that like to be a writer that you need to have the available support?
If you have available support, then you will go even faster, or you will stay on track. But if you don't have the
Mm.
support, it's all about self-discipline. You know, writing is a lonely job. Unfortunately, it is lah. You have editors, but you need to write before they can edit. You know, like it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
starts
makes
with you. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I
Very
remember then, I went through the entire publishing process with very little support lah. Yeah.
I see. So like now you publish like 8 books already. So like how do you feel about it now?
So now, right, I feel that actually because of that lonely journey was why I started doing a lot of mentoring lah, of like
Mm,
yeah, bringing other writers, because I could understand that journey on itself. But
makes
maybe I
sense.
want to finish that story of how I got my first manuscript published lah. So
Yeah.
okay, this is tips lah, for people who want to get published and everything. You know how do I get published? Like, so like number one, you have to have a manuscript lah. Of course, in the Western world, you just write a proposal, 2 chapters, you send in, you might get a contract. But in Malaysia, it's less. It's better that you have a manuscript ready lah. Because if you send in a
Yeah.
proposal and they tell you, okay, please finish writing in 6 months, and then you fail.
Uh,
You know, do you really want to get a contract first when you already know writing is quite challenging in the discipline part?
yeah.
So I always
Yes.
encourage writer that comes to me and say, hey, don't ask me how to get published. Write that 100,000 word first, then we talk about how to get published, because that part is easy. It's the writing part that is
Yeah.
taking forever, you know.
Yes.
So some of the tips is, for example, what I did was, because I don't know anyone in the industry, like I'm a very introvert. I just read myself, write myself, very lonely kind of world, you know, in my own solo world and stuff like that. So I went to the bookshop, and all the novels I've been reading, I just pick, oh, I like this publisher lah, the cover quite nice. I like this publisher ah, like the stories I like is this, like. So then I pick from the local publisher, and then I just flip lah to the page behind, got right one, published by who, company name, got address, got email address, got phone number, call lah. So that's what I did. I went, oh, company name. Never noticed such thing as publisher name, you know, what penguin, whatever, because we only look at good storybooks. I don't look at the brand. I was that naive, right? Then I went to Google, oh, this brand, got this brand. Then almost every publisher's page have a manuscript submission tab that tells you when you submit this. It's just follow lah.
Mm,
So I just follow lah. So I always tell people it's not complicated. It's just you cannot just ask for a contact and say, hey, send me my manuscript. You need to go and study what kind of publisher
yeah.
you are looking out for, you
Research.
know. Yeah, a bit of like pay more attention, like this is your work, like that lah, you know. So they always say, oh, I get rejected, I'm very sad. Then when I ask, so what story you wrote? Love story. Then you send it to, oh, Fixie. I said, Fixie don't do love story. No matter how good you are, they're gonna reject you. And then you're gonna feel bummed for another 3 years because you think you're useless, your story is useless or whatever. And I'm like thinking, you are barking up the wrong tree. You know. So when I
Yeah,
finished
very
my
true.
manuscript, I know I was writing romance, and I know it was in Malay. So I went to the Malay romance section and picked lah the publisher. And the first one that I wrote in
Mm,
accepted the manuscript lah. Yeah. And that time I don't even know what's a manuscript. You know, I didn't even write 100,000 words. I wrote like 30,000 words. I finished the story. Yay, 30,000 is a lot, you know. It's like don't know how
still
many
pretty
pages of
impressive,
A4.
30,000.
Yeah. So I submitted in the accepted. We went through some minor edits, and then they started to lay out the pages. Ready for print, they just lay out, yeah. Lay out. I get a phone call and said, Gina, not enough pages. Then I said, what do you mean not enough pages? 30,000 words. They said, oh, we never realized your word count is
Ah,
below optimum. Okay, so the second tip as a writer, when you write your manuscript, there is an optimum word count. Optimum word count means that they have to make sure that the book, when they print, is not so thin that they cannot sell. If your book is this thin, then they cannot sell more than 10 ringgit, then they cannot earn money. And like, it's just, you cannot earn money. And then they're like, it's not a business thing. They won't accept you because you don't meet the word count. So I didn't meet the
yes.
word count. It's like, Gina, the book a bit thin, huh? Can you fatten it? Then I'm like, hey, I don't know all this. I'm first time writer, first manuscript. What do you mean by fatten it? Make font bigger. He said, no, 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 you must write more words. You must write 20,000 words. And I'm like, oh, but the story finished already. Then in between, you just add some scenes, make it bigger, make it longer. Then I'm like that one. So that was my first time of learning word count. So word count was something that a lot of writers, right, should be the first question you ask. How many words make a book? They never ask. I'm writing a book, and then they finish writing at 20,000. Yay, 20,000 is less than 50 pages after you lay out. Who's going to buy a 50 pages book? So that was my lesson all on my own, you see. So yeah, second thing, if you are listening today, you should probably note that generally in Malaysia, at least a 60 to 80,000. But if you're aiming for US, UK, Australia, if you don't have 100,000 word, they don't even look at it. So
Wow.
yeah, it's quite interesting
Yeah.
lah. So then I had to sort of fatten the book lah, they call it. Went back and like, okay,
Fetish.
let me figure out how to fatten the book. I kind of fattened it maybe another 15,000 words, and they were happy with it, so it went through lah. Okay, so then the other thing was names. So they said, oh, would you be okay using a pseudonym? Because Chinese write Malay, nobody read lah. I was like, my first book and I cannot use my real name. Like, what? I don't know. When your first book, right? You didn't think about
Oh,
it, right? You
wow.
think that if I write it,
Yeah.
my name should be on it, right? But my
Okay.
publisher was like, Gina, I think you should use a pseudonym. Oh, what name? You can suggest. Then I said, what? Siti, Amina, what?
Siti Hamid.
Rosita, like Rosma, like because
Rose.
I'm not a Malay, you see. So when you ask me
Exactly.
to choose a Malay pseudonym, I just cannot, right? So after that, I thought about it. Then I said, okay, I will just do Gina. And then there was, I think, some of my cousins were saying, oh, there's this actress that they like called Edora. Okay lah, Gina Edora lah. I said Geena. Okay, not so Chinese, right? Gina Edora. I said, then the person said, you really want to put Gina? I said, yeah, I want it that when people call me at the street, they call Gina, I can answer, you call me Amina, I will just walk, right? I wouldn't know it's me, right? If like Natalia, if I call you, like let's say you change your name, right? It's like, oh, Amy, and then you're like, who's Amy? You get what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I get it.
I did a trick with my pseudo. Like I kind of used the same pronunciation, Gina Edora. So I said, so if you call me, at least I know you're calling me, After you say I
Mm.
rude for walking away. So yeah, if you ever have to choose a pseudo, choose something that you can live and respond to. And not
Good tip.
something that
Good tip.
yeah, and not something that nice and cool, but you cannot live, you don't react to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like now all your books, do you go by that pseudonym?
Never. That was the one and only time. But by the time I met my second publisher, I said, before I even write or anything, the rule is it must be my real name. I don't even know who is this Gina Edora. I had identity crisis. And it didn't really help because Gina Edora gave everyone the
Uh,
impression that, oh, it might be a Malay fella who wrote the novel. And then I went to my
yeah.
first meet and greet. They gave me a table. It was a book fair. And then young boys were buying my book, 16, 17-year-old. I don't know why. Okay. So they buy me a book, they're holding my book, and then the host says, oh, Gina is at the table. Remember to get your autograph, before you go, blah 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 blah. And I was sitting there, and these guys just walk like this. They hold my book, then they walk. I was like thinking, man, it's my first time also, right? I'm
Yeah,
not
I
a
get it.
seasoned person, right? So I'm saying, am I supposed to stop them or what? Why are they walking around with my books, but they're not talking to me? And then I wish one boy came and then looked up and said, ni Gina Edora, dia orang cakap sini saya tak jumpa. Like, I don't see this Gina Edora that they asked me come here to meet. Then I'm like, hello? Me? You need anything? I Gina Edora. Then they look at me. you look like Gina and Nora, like,
Oh no.
you know. So I had a bit of identity crisis
Mm,
with that. I felt that because we have a very good, very pre-made impression that
yeah.
Malay must write a Malay novel. And the
Yes,
Chinese
yes.
must write. The Chinese can write English. Why come cannot write? Yeah, I cannot write Chinese. I have to
Mindset.
my language.
It's a mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it came to my second book, I said no. I'm gonna still write in Malay because I kind of enjoyed the process. But no way, man, you put my real name and take the risk because I'm having crisis. The person having crisis. It doesn't help the reader and the writer to really connect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because it's like you're not knowing the real you in a way.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it didn't help. I said Gina. Nobody even called Gina. Like, the chick Gina. Oh, kamu chick Gina.
uh, yeah. I'm glad you figured it out for like the rest of your other, was it 7 books?
Yeah.
I mean, like, but like, of all those books, like, do you have like a favorite maybe, of like your favorite work?
Maybe lah. I don't know. I do. I mean, there's one that I enjoy the most writing lah. Because as a writer, like I said, I didn't study creative writing. I didn't study literature or anything like that. So everything was
Yeah.
self-taught, right? So the more you write, the more you learn. So if you say you always go to writing workshop and after 10 years you still haven't write, you're
What's the
actually
point?
learning. Yeah, you're actually learning nothing. You're just learning head knowledge that you don't get to apply. You see, so I always say that you need to write in order to learn. So I learn as I go along that, oh, this one, I learned a lot in my second book because I had a development editor. My publisher said,
Mm,
you meet this editor. She's not, so there's two type editor. Oh, another new tips, two type editor. One is line editor. Line editor check your grammar, your language, your typo. She don't care if your story sucks. She only care that the grammar is correct. Then you have a
right.
development editor that don't care about your language. She only care that your story sucks. Okay, if your
I
language sucks, it's not
see.
not her business. I only
I
care that this
see.
story got loophole this story don't make sense this story. So I was assigned a development editor for my second book, and he was very good. He told me this one and this one and this one didn't make sense. You got loophole, here got loophole, here got loophole. So I learned from that because no one taught me anything about storytelling or whatever. And back then, right, internet just started. It's not like you can Google everything so easily lah. Okay, so I was like, and actually, even if you have internet, sometimes you Google the application is something that you need people to teach.
Yes. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
So this guy taught me, oh, loophole. I said, oh, my story very horrible actually. And then I went and we discussed how to solve the loopholes, and I give some ideas of what I want. But basically, they give suggestions, and then I went back and I rework on it. So that was my learning process. So I came to my third book. I kind of know, oh, I know what's the story, what makes a better story now, right? So I started writing.
Yeah.
Uh, it was most of my books are written without knowing what's the ending. Like I don't know what's the ending. I just write like I just have some big ideas of two fat fellow falling in love. Yeah, how they end up falling in love, I don't know. I will just write and figure
Mm.
it out, right? So my third book was a crime thriller. I write. Wow, very kanchong. I so very kanchong. The more I write, the more I like. Wow, who's this fat fellow? Because I don't have an ending in mind, and I didn't know who was
I
the
see.
right. Then I reached the climax. Right? Even I sat down there for 2 days. I don't know how to solve this anymore. And that was the best journey I felt for me when I'm writing a crime thriller and I reach a part of the story where it was so climax that the writer don't even know how it ends. Like, how on earth they are tangle up everything? Now how am I going to solve this thing? And I took 3 days break because I didn't know how to resolve what I created. Like, then my housemate that time was like, "Hey, are you stressed?" I said, "Yeah, I cannot solve my own puzzle." Actually, who is the killer lah? Like, what's this? Everyone on the hill up there in the middle of it's stuck up a hill with a hut and no Wi-Fi, and I don't know what to do. The killer is there, the police is there, the victim is there. Then she look at me, your story, like I said, yeah, but I stuck. And
That's so real.
and that part was what I thought when I unlocked it. There, I felt, oh, this is the best writing experience. So it has only so far
Mm,
happened. The most intense was my third book, lah. Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah, I like how like you mentioned that like from you took the lessons from your past experiences and then you like really just help you to grow more in writing. So like, okay, first book, okay, now you know what didn't work out for that, so then you brought it to the second book, and then second
Yeah,
book, then you listening from that, you took it to the next one, then to the next one, to the
correct.
next one. It's like just ultimately like building up your skill and just your writing so much more. It's like, yeah, yeah, learning from mistakes and learning from past experiences is, I think it's really an important thing. I would say, yeah,
Yeah, and it
yeah.
actually also your readers can see it. Actually, Malaysian
Mm,
readers are not that bad. They are quite supportive. You know, those who really buy local. So I remember like they told me, "Wow, your first trilogy book sucks. So predictable." Like, okay. Second one, like, oh, this is much better. Gina has improved. They write reviews on my Goodreads. Gina has improved. Her third book was better. Her fourth book. So you, as you develop, your readers also can see your growth. Then they will stick to you.
mm,
But if you keep writing, then they will like every book also she haven't improved. It's still as bad as before, or so as before. Then you also lose readers lah. So I'm quite grateful that most
mm,
of the readers I have, the really faithful one, will actually leave reviews that I can see lah, a few familiar names lah, username or whatever. I say, hey, this few always review one. Then I will read, oh, Gina has improved in this structuring, or Gina has improved in storytelling, or Gina now sucks in this or something like that. Then I will, okay, more things for me to learn and then bring it on to the next book.
mm.
You don't cry over a book that has been published. Oh yeah, I wish this
Yeah.
book have never been published. Let's tear it and throw it down the dustbin. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's like, yeah, like hearing the reader's voice is also quite important, like to see, cause see how they perceive your book, and then like so I guess like some feedback you don't really have to pay attention to, but like some feedback then you can really use it. So it's like,
correct,
I guess like knowing how to differentiate between like which feedback. Okay, so it's like but this feedback is like, like, okay, that makes sense. I think I can improve
correct.
more on this. Yeah, I
Constructive
really like
feedback
it.
lah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
makes
my
sense, makes sense.
first crime thriller, my second book is a crime thriller. So it was quite depressing because I get, Goodreads, right? Goodreads, the book
Yeah,
review
good read.
platform. Just in case you all don't know, you can put 1 star or 5 star one. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so I remember my second book, crime thriller, I got as much 5 star as I did 1 star, and I went, hey, you sell ah. The book can be 5 star, 5 star, and then 1 star, 1 star. You all cannot make up your mind. Is it like, as a young writer, I couldn't understand it. You get a 5 star, you're like, yeah, and then the next day you get 1 star, you're like, one man
Huh?
cannot even give 2 ah. Like you cannot even call me average 3 ah. Must be 1 ah. And then it hits a lot of people, especially writers. People say writers
Yes.
have sensitive soul and whatever. Not. So it hit me very hard the first time I got this kind of reaction, and I went, wow, so confused. And then I realized I started to read all these reviewers who said 1 star and 5 star. The 1 star people have been reading crime thrillers for a long time in their life. They are comparing me to some other big names that is crime thriller, like
Mm,
so of course I lose lah. It's my first crime thriller. I won't win some J.K. Rowling or whatever. In comparison, I actually
yeah.
get a 1 star lah. But those who give me 5 star, first time I pick up a crime thriller, I never pick up before. I enjoy it. I will read more crime thriller. So you have also readers from different backgrounds. So don't be so harsh on yourself when you get a 1 star.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
the different perception that people have towards your book was, yeah,
correct.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah lah.
Wow. As my brain is like going to explode right now. I have so much to think about. But like sadly we are like coming to the end of this first part of our interview. So, wow, thank you so much for just really talking all about all of this with me. I think your writing journey has really been such a unique one, definitely. So, thank you very much for sharing it with me and the audience. I loved it so much. I will never forget it, definitely. Yeah.
Great.
Uh, I'm really looking forward to our next session where, spoiler alert, I think you mentioned it a little bit already. We will explore a little bit more about your mentoring experiences. So, yeah, if the audience wants to know what I mean by that, well, you just have to tune in next one to find out. So, yeah, Gina, thank you so much for this first session, and thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget, this is only the first part. of our talk with Gina, and the next one will be released next month. So stay tuned for that, and please have a great day, everyone. Thank you.